Think back to when you were younger. People always ask, what do you want to do when you grow up? I don't think anyone ever asked my daughter that question, and I probably didn't do this as much as I should when she was younger. I certainly did once I realised why it was such an important question to ask a young person with additional needs. G'day, I'm Debra Caldow. Welcome to the Red Giraffe Solutions Expanding Worlds podcast, where we aim to support you as you help your young person with additional needs plan for their future, a future where they're safe, secure, and live a rewarding and fulfilling life. From around the world, I share stories and I share solutions from people making this possible right now. I'm a parent of a young person with additional needs, so I understand the challenges. Many of the people I've interviewed on this podcast have already helped me design a better future for my daughter, and I hope that they might help you as well to imagine what's possible for your young person. This podcast is made possible by Red Giraffe Solutions, which is a project I'm proud to be part of, supporting families to build a better future for their children. We now have available at Red Giraffe Solutions an online course called Independent Cooking Made Easy. This is a new and unique approach we developed when we realised traditional cooking techniques and recipes were never going to enable our daughter to cook without some support or supervision. It's a safe, simple system that uses no more than 5 ingredients, has no weighing, cutting or chopping, and no lifting of heavy dishes. Each of the 16 recipes in the course includes a step-by-step video of our daughter making the meal, plus a visual recipe card. We developed this for our daughter to solve her challenges with cooking, and every recipe in the course she can and does genuinely cook for herself. You can find a link to the course in this episode's show notes. Over the past 2 weeks, the topic has been supported internships. It's a topic I never get tired of talking about, if I'm honest. My guest was Ellie Headley-Dent from Team Dominica, and she explained how Team Dominica firstly prepares young people for a supported internship, and then how they support them in the workplace once they're on their supported internship. Ellie also talked about one of the most important parts of her role, engaging employers so that more internships become available. Team Dominica was where my own daughter went for her supported internship, so I'd like to think that I know a little bit about the challenges and the rewards of a supported internship, at least from a parent's point of view, which is really what I want to share over the next couple of episodes. Firstly this week in terms of what we can do as a family to prepare for a supported internship, and then next week what we can do when it comes to supporting our young person on their supported internship. This week though is probably a bit more about what I wish I'd known, because by the time we discovered supported internships and realised that they were a viable option for our daughter, it was a bit late to do some of the things that I'll be talking about. But of course over the last few years I've also had the opportunity through this podcast of talking to others who know a lot more about this topic than I ever will, so I'm also sharing what they've told me. The first tip I would offer is to talk about work from as early an age as possible. Think back to when you were younger. People always ask, what do you want to do when you grow up? I don't think anyone ever asked my daughter that question, and I probably didn't do this as much as I should when she was younger. I certainly did once I realised why it was such an important question to ask a young person with additional needs. I think there are so many reasons this doesn't happen as much as it should, but I feel the main reason comes back to expectations about what someone with additional needs will do with their lives. The narrative is dominated by what our children won't be able to do. This then permeates into how they're seen. There might also be a bit of avoidance of talking about the future, perhaps because it feels a bit scary to even think that far ahead. But now I understand that we're doing them a disservice if we don't think about their future, particularly for that time when we're not going to be around. So when it comes to talking about work, it's about a presumption of work, that belief that one day they will work, but it's also about opening their imagination about the roles that they can do. And it can also be about talking about our own work lives. Most of us have some pretty interesting work stories and can talk about the jobs we've loved, what we've learned, and of course the jobs that we didn't like so much, but we still had to do. We can talk about the benefits of work, the money of course, but other things like meeting interesting people. In fact, I should mention I met my husband at work in an office in Australia. Of course, I understand that we also need to wait until the time is right to talk about work with our children, and that will be very individual. But I do know that I could have had more general conversations with my daughter about work and how her work future might look at a much younger age than I ended up doing. The second tip is about doing the work yourself. Again, I suppose in a way I was fortunate in that once I started this podcast, I suddenly got to speak to people who talked about supported internships, the benefits and the issues, so my understanding grew quite quickly. I also, when I was researching for guests for the podcast, found the organisation that I knew could offer my daughter a supported internship. But most families won't be in that position, so you might be going from a standing start. However, this is a step that you can never start too early, especially if you already feel that your child isn't someone who's going to enjoy staying in a school or college environment any longer than they have to. In terms of research, without being too flippant, I would say Google supported internships. And of course there's examples of organisations delivering supported internships on this podcast in various parts of the world. If you're finding a lack of information, I would say start with the bigger organisations. Most of the well-known national disability support organisations have an employment section on their websites. I think doing the research early as well will help you plan other things, and one of those could be where you live. We moved house so that our daughter could go on her supported internship. But it was more than that. We moved to an area where we knew there were more opportunities for her to find paid work. The simple fact is that you need the employers willing to offer work to our young people. So this may be a choice you need to make. It's not one that we found easy to make, but we felt long term it was necessary, and luckily we love the town we moved to. But even if you don't decide to move, you need to make other decisions which will help ensure that a supported internship has more likelihood of leading to paid work. The next tip is about getting them work ready. It's fine to talk about work and what it means, but there are skills that will make it easier for them to succeed on a supported internship. In fact, the organisation that my daughter went with, Team Dominica, spends the first year of their program teaching young people employability skills. So I think that one of the things that we can really give our children a head start on is to work on those skills at home. Now, some of these skills could be practical skills that they may never use in their job. They may not be working as a barista, but being able to make coffee for colleagues is certainly a useful skill. They may never need to vacuum in their job, but knowing how to do that isn't a bad thing in life. Becoming proficient in practical everyday skills will also give them confidence in their own abilities and show them that it's not difficult to learn something new. Once they realise this, then hopefully other skills are something that they will come to look at as achievable. The other important part of being work ready is having the kinds of attitudes that help make success at work much more likely. When we hear employers talk about what they want from new employees, there is often less of a focus on skills and more on having the right attitude. Having a positive attitude to work, looking to help others when you're at work, being willing to step in and help when it's needed, are things that make for great employees. But of course, attitudes are a bit of an abstract thing. So to develop an attitude, I think the biggest thing that we can do at home, and this is a lesson that's taken me far too long to learn, is to give our children the opportunity to fail. We need to let them make choices, so they have the opportunity to get things wrong. Because only by getting things wrong will they be able to learn how to get it right. I did way too much for my daughter to the point where she expected me to do too much for her. That wasn't really building her skills or her self-belief, and she wasn't learning what she could and what she couldn't do, because I wasn't giving her those opportunities, that dignity of risk, if you like. This is one of those things that I really wish that I hadn't got wrong. Of course, she's older now, so it's become much less of an issue, and because she's in paid work, she has more confidence to make those decisions. But it's really important that we give our children that choice, because choice and making mistakes builds resilience. And that's such an important thing for all of us to have. And the final tip that I would give is about work experiences. And by this I don't necessarily mean work experience in a traditional sense, because I know how hard it is to get our children work experience. In an ideal world, my youngest would have had a part-time job at 16, as her older sister did. But that was never an option, because not only would she have needed support, she would have found the environment that you tend to get those part-time jobs in far too overwhelming. But I do think that she could have had work experiences where she spent time in a workplace just seeing how people acted and what they did. This would have given her an insight into what work was really all about. Volunteering can also fulfill this role. My daughter did in fact do a little of this through her school, and frankly she didn't enjoy it, but that was fine because it was important for her to understand that work isn't always going to be wonderful, that sometimes there'll be jobs that we don't enjoy. Looking back, I know with a bit of effort on my part, I could have found ways for her to experience workplaces. If there's one thing I've learned is that there are people out there who want to support our young people. Yes, there's a fear of what might go wrong, but the upside, I think, outweigh this. I'm sure given the chance, many people I know would have gladly helped out if I'd just asked them. So just to recap, the 4 tips that I would give when it comes to supporting your child as they move towards a supported internship is firstly to talk about work. Have that presumption that one day they'll get a job. Instill in them this certainty. The second tip is to do the work yourself. Please don't rely on a school or someone else. And this is really just about research, finding out what supported internships are available in your area, who provides them, whether or not there are enough employers in the area to be able to provide supported internships which will lead to paid employment. The third tip is very actively working on building skills and instilling positive attitudes at home, giving them the opportunity to make mistakes and to learn from those mistakes. And finally, the last tip is to look for work experiences, not the traditional route necessarily, but try and open them up to a world of work. We all have friends in different businesses who have never asked for support, and they just might say yes. In next week's episode, I'm going to be talking about supporting your young person when they're on their supported internship. And this really isn't as simple as it sounds. And I can genuinely say I learned an awful lot about myself in the time that my daughter was on her supported internship. I just want to say thank you for taking the time to listen, and I hope that the stories and solutions shared on here help you as you support your young person to create their future. If you know anyone who would find the ideas useful, please share the podcast with them. To support the podcast, please consider finding out more about the Independent Cooking Made Easy online course. It's a safe, simple system that works. There are links to the course in the show notes. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn at Debra Caldow. I'd love to have a conversation with you on any of the topics we all care about. Bye for now.